Yo, what's up? It's D. So, just wanted to do like for the people that are new that just started following me, or for the people that followed me last year when I was kind of like first getting into everything you see right now, kind of like a reintroduction video. You know what I'm saying? Of who I am, what I do, and like what this my hair is tripping, what this space is meant to be. So it may be kind of long. I also decided to kind of jump back into the YouTube that I created for blckspces, except of course now it'll be called DRBTS. So if for whatever every video that I do like this, I guess like more lifestyle or even just like the regular videos, I'll probably post them on my YouTube too. Trying to be more consistent on that and just trying to be I guess more all around when it comes to content or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So let's jump right into it. I made a list so I can try to stay on track. So the first question, just to kind of I guess like get an idea of who I am and what I do and how I got here. So obviously my name is D. I say it in like every video. It's kind of like my tagline now. So my name is D. I am based out of the DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex in Texas. For anybody that's outside of Texas, that is Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington, Irving, Grand Prairie, Denton. It's a whole bunch of cities. Primarily, like I do a lot of work, as y'all see, is in South Dallas, and in the Southern Dallas area. And then recently, getting opportunity to do more work on the other side of 20, which is more on the side of town that I'm from, which is Arlington. I went to UT Arlington, University of Texas at Arlington, for my bachelor's and my master's. 2015 for my bachelor's, 2018 for my master's. I got my master's in city regional planning, and I've been out of graduate school for 3 years now. So I guess practicing urban planning, for 3 years, 3.5, 3 and some change, whatever. What else? Oh, my interest in my I guess my expert areas or my background. So if you've been with me like from last year when I kind of did the transition, or when I did the transition on my page to more urban planning, urban design, kind of, you know, education, informative, that kind of thing. A big thing, or the main thing that I'm interested in, is space activation, placemaking, placekeeping, place creation, and the way spaces and places impact quality of life, particularly in Black and brown communities. As you probably have seen if you just started following me, that's really my jam. Especially when it comes to outdoor spaces. Not saying indoor spaces don't have that same impact, but as we saw last year with COVID, everything was pushed outdoors in the sense of that was probably the safest, safest, most unpublic space that you could be, considering the distance requirements and everything like that. But a lot of people got outside last year, so it really heightened the need to reevaluate how we think of spaces and places and how they impact other people different than people with lighter skin complexion, let's say that. So that and zoning and land use, I've started to talk more about that this year. Last year really just kind of got caught up in the idea of places and like racial equity as far as it comes to like zoning and land use. So that's really like the second half of like where the passion came from to really like get into urban planning after I graduated and like started working in public sector. So that's geared towards the way zoning policy, zoning practice, land use policies impact communities of color, how they've systemically, historically, purposefully been designed to keep those communities. It's pretty restricted from resources and from growth, wealth, access to just basic human rights, all the things. So those are quote unquote my interests and my expert areas that I'm delving into more as I get more into my career and then more into the planner that I really want to be. So that's me in a nutshell, you know what I'm saying? I tie a lot of my work and what I do into the things I was passionate about before I really got into urban planning, which is sports. Any type of sport, primarily basketball, streetwear, and sneakers. Obviously, like I try to, my main goal is to tie all of that back together, especially when it comes to urban planning and helping people find interest in it, especially people that look like me and that are a little bit younger or trying to get into it, or just like, what is it, what's the purpose of it. So I always try to tie it into things that I was already passionate about, that have a little bit of like interest and like relevance to day-to-day life, you know what I mean? So next thing, why urban planner as a career? So of course, if you're an urban planner, you get asked all the time, what is urban planning? Do you plan events? Are you an event planner? Do you do weddings? All that kind of stuff, you know what I'm saying? I honestly will say that urban planning chose me. I didn't really choose it. And I know that sounds super cliche, but just keeping it a buck, after I graduated undergrad, I was just like everybody else, trying to figure out what was next, what I was gonna do, yada yada yada. And towards the end, literally my last class of undergrad, I had a teacher who is his background is in racial equity when it comes to education, access to education, and that was really like the whole concept of the course that we took with him for graduation as like part of our capstone class and whatnot. So that class really focused on, that was what really introduced me to zoning before I knew what zoning was. We just looked at it from an educational standpoint, as far as your zip code defines pretty much the life you're gonna have, especially if you're a person of color, black or brown. And we focused on that in Harlem, and how, you know, access to quality schools was a huge deal, you know, as far as if you lived in a certain area, how it was going to pretty much restrict you from going to a better school in a better area. So anyways, he was the one that pushed me towards urban planning. He was like, do you know what that is? Have you thought about graduate school? No, hadn't even thought about it. Had always said I would never go back to school after I got my bachelor's, and finally finished. And I guess the epitome of that is never say never. So he introduced me to it, and that was really what happened. Like, there was no epiphany, there was no like life-altering moment that got me here. It was one of my professors saw the interest and the passion that I had in what we were doing at the time, and he was able to like mesh that into real life instances, as far as like being involved in a community and in a school that is low income in the city in Arlington, as far as how access to not just quality education, but just like a school with teachers and counselors and principals and staff that care, has a big impact when the primary demographic of that school is black and Hispanic. It was a whole different ball game, just like being with those kids every 2 days a week. So that was really it. That's how I ended up in urban planning. I say it whenever somebody asks me, you know what I'm saying. I Googled it like everybody else, and I went and bought Urban Planning for Dummies from Barnes & Nobles. That's pretty much it. And as I got more into it, it was a lot of stuff that I had always wanted to do. Like, I always wanted to make an impact in the community and have an impact. But at the time, I just felt like you could only really do that if you had money, and if you were like you had some type of notoriety to you. So I always felt like I was going to do that through sports and basketball, you know what I'm saying? But here we are. So urban planning, I didn't choose it, it chose me. But you know, most of us, as you'll hear on from any urban planner, for the most part, it just kind of happened on accident. I always cared about community, always cared about being involved in a different kind of way, rather than just like give backs and picking up trash and volunteering. It was like, it's got to be more to it than that. So that's how we ended up here, you know what I'm saying? I guess it was just kind of like, you know, the universe said go, and this is where we are. What is DRBTS and why did I start it? So if we rewind a little bit, when I started this transition, this was blckspces, and blckspces was the epitome of creating a space that black planners could just be. They could exist, they could talk about whatever, they could chop it up. It would be just a dope ass spot for black planners to be, and also black professionals in, you know, in the development world. And after sitting on this, I had this idea back in like, I don't know, 2018, 2017. I just never really went all the way through with it, because at the time it seemed like it was gonna be too exclusive of other races and other types of other planners. And it was like, well, you know, you don't want to be blackballed for like singling out a certain type and X, Y, and Z. And essentially, like, last year really opened up Pandora's box that we've always been excluded. It's just now everybody seems to care about the exclusion. So just jumped headfirst into it last year, of course, in the middle of a global pandemic. Didn't really have much else going on. So yeah, blckspces is how is what that came out of, like a brainchild from like 2017 that I finally just forced myself to sit down and do, and it really helped redirect and refocus like why I got into urban planning, or why I decided to pursue it, not just from a graduate program perspective, but also from like a career perspective, and what fueled me to even be here right now. Like, mind you, and I don't know if I've mentioned this before, I think I have. When I started Black Spaces, I wasn't working. I had just quit my job from a previous city, from a toxic work environment, and just like super beat down, and just in a really weird part of my career, as far as I was being somewhat professionally blackballed, and I was really putting a damper on my spirit, on my soul, as far as like, maybe this ain't where I'm supposed to be, because nothing was good enough, seemingly. So that, on top of a little bit of depression, a little bit of anxiety peaks, and then, you know, the pandemic and being quarantined at the crib all the time, it was like, well, there's no better place. Which is why I also wanted to incorporate this blog aspect of it. I have from the MySpace and the Zanga days, that's probably showing my age a little bit, but blogging always been like the thing that I like to do. I just never would have posted it for people to see and read, but I felt like, well, this is how I'm feeling, and me being a Black planner, which is kind of not as much now, but it's a rarity to be open and to be very, I guess, unprofessional by our profession standards, is to just having these conversations that are open and candid, as far as it doesn't have to be the elephant in the room. This is the thing. These are things that we experience on a day-to-day basis, not just being planners, but being Black and Black planners, you know what I'm saying? So that's how Black Spaces was born and created. The growth of Black Spaces really took off last year. Like, I had no idea, no plan of action for it. It just kind of happened. Fast forward to this year, I had some, I won't say issues, just had a difference of, it wasn't even urban planning at first. It was really just like open format diary, to be honest with you. So fast forward to right now is where we got to DRBTS, which is Do Right by the Streets, and that was a tagline that kind of came with Black Spaces and the things that I was writing about, and in my blog, and in some of the articles that I've been featured in and written. And I was like, okay, well, that's clearly the next best thing, and it still takes on all of the things that I started Black Spaces for, and the things that I'm doing, and that I really want to aim to change in urban planning as a profession. So that's how DRBTS was born. Now it'll be a year officially, like on paper, that Black Spaces, now DRBTS, has been a thing and been like an entity and all the jazz, you know what I'm saying? But I started Black Spaces, like I said, originally as just a blog space, open format, just a place to maybe sometimes vent, maybe sometimes rant, maybe sometimes just you know, write, because it's not as easy to be featured in some of your favorite, or some of the more well-known blog spaces or online editorials or digital whatever than it may seem. And I felt like, well, I have complete control over this. I can write what I want, say what I want, post what I want, when I want, however I want, how often I want. And that was the biggest push behind that, was being transparent when I created this space and transitioned my Instagram to be taken more serious, and for it to be informative, but also to be like, I'm not just, you know, I eat, sleep, and breathe urban planning. I mean, I do, but I'm still like a human, and I do regular schmegular stuff just like anybody else. I just happen to have an interesting career that doesn't really, like, my mom doesn't stop thinking about it. So that was, I mean, the plan was to always be like an entity, was to always be a business, but when it started to take effect and people really started to reach out, and when I got like my first speaking engagement, that's when I was like, okay, that's when it hit me, like, okay, this has to be like a taxable, an entity, an LLC or LP, whatever the case may be. So that's when I say on paper was when Black Spaces, now DRBTS, was officially like formed as an LLC in its own business kind of thing. So essentially, DRBTS is an urban planning and design firm or group that specializes and focuses on place creation, place keeping, space activation projects in communities of color, as well as zoning and land use education, implementation, and its impacts when it comes to not only residential, which isn't primarily my focus, but commercial as well. So that's how we got to DRBTS. what? DRBTS. So I said, why did I start it? Oh, I think I kind of skipped over that. Basically, why did I start it? There are not a ton of black-owned urban planning and design firms. I could probably count 5 on my hand. I probably couldn't actually count 5 on my hand that I know nationwide, and that's where I feel like there was a gap. I felt like there was nobody doing like the grit work, the groundwork, the grind part of like really educating primarily black and brown business owners, black and brown landowners, black and brown developers, contractors, whatever, when it came down to land development. Like they don't really exist. And with that in mind, it was what cultivated like Black Spaces and the Black Planner Collective. As far as I didn't know 10 Black Planner like at all before I started the Black Planner Collective, and I didn't know that so many people were like interested in it or going to school for it that were black or brown. You know what I'm saying? It's not something that's advertised highly, and it's not definitely something that's advertised where you don't have to code switch and kind of be whitewashed to, or not kind of be whitewashed to be successful and move up the ranks, or just be a prominent name in urban planning. And that's when it was like, okay, this needs to be a space, this needs to be a thing, and this needs to be something that it's not just trying to make a buck, just trying to get money. A lot of urban planning firms really focus on bigger projects, so your comprehensive plans, your long range planning, stuff like that. You don't see too many, if any, that will take on small minuscule things like zoning and land use consultation for one business. If they do, it may be a business that has like multiple properties in multiple cities and multiple countries type of thing. You don't see anybody really reaching out to like the average person that's just interested in it, has property, wants to develop it. So representation, really. I wanted to see more of me in urban planning, and I wanted to see more people that look like me and that can succeed without being held down to a public sector or a private firm job. Don't get me wrong, I still obviously have a 9-to-5, but my biggest goal with DRBTS is to be not just financially free, but time free. Like the freedom that comes with being able to give my time to a community for a month or 2 months if I chose to really be, embedded and engaged and like really locked into what they have going on, to better do my job, to better serve them as a community. And that's where you don't get any wiggle room in public sector, as far as you push out projects, you move on, and that's it. If you get attached, if you find time to attach to people, it's because you've gone out of your way to do so. And I didn't like that. I don't like that right now. It's one of my biggest gripes with public sector planning is you treat people like a project number, and it's celebrated when people actually and you give a damn about people, when we should just be doing that anyways. But that's the premise of why I started DRBTS and why I go so hard behind it, and why I'm always encouraging people not to necessarily be entrepreneurs and start your own thing, because it's a hell of a lot of responsibility that I have no idea why I thought I was ready for, but here I am just winging it, honestly. But definitely, whatever organization you're in, being comfortable, being yourself, and just being able to exist as a black person without having to take it off and put it back on when you get in and out of the office. You know what I mean? That is my whole intent about this space, and when I talk about it, when I go to places. So it's all black everything with me. So last 2 things. Top 5 things I changed about getting to where I am now. Top 5. I don't know why I did 5. So no particular order. I would say the fear of not being ready. You're never going to be ready for what public sector has to offer you. There's no guideline to how people will treat you. There's no guideline to how people will disrespect you and talk crazy to you. Just being able to jump into it and be ready for whatever. That's something that I would change about me personally. I didn't anticipate that, and I held on to that way too long, and it made it hard for me to transition. Second thing is doubting my abilities. If I could change it, I would have came in with way more confidence when I got out of graduate school, and I didn't have any. I was overwhelmed by job descriptions, having to have 3 years of experience, this and this, and I would get overwhelmed, or just not even overwhelmed, just anxious, because people that went to A&M or a more renowned planning school for graduate school, those are the people that were you know, being talked about, getting jobs, getting big time jobs. And, you know, I went to UTA, which is a good planning program, but people don't consider it in the ranks of your, you know, your top men in University of Michigan. Like I said, Texas A&M, University of Southern California has an amazing planning program as well. So that lack of confidence, I think, would have definitely made a difference when I came out of school. Just like, not even really like popping your shit, but just like confident that I am passionate about making positive change. So that should be enough to get you at least get you started. You know what I'm saying? The third thing I change, not being aware of who I was or who I was becoming or how to exist like as myself at work. And that's from not even like really so much my sexuality, but my outer appearance, like things that obviously cannot be hidden, that cannot change, that don't come off. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have this, of course, at first, but just being more comfortable than that. Like, looking back on it now, like I thought I was comfortable, but I really wasn't. I was still trying to, like, you know, slide by and not really get too much into my tattoos, not really like show them too often, just because I didn't want the extra shit. And then that self-confidence, I guess that ties back into the other thing. If I had been more comfortable with myself, like the amazing, the dope ass black planner that I am right now, you know, it probably would have made a world of a difference when it came down to the respect aspect of it. You know what I'm saying? Let's see, number 4, what did I change? The whole eating shit phase of like being treated badly and just shitted on. I wish I would have been more big dog about that back then, because at no point in your career should that be like acceptable. There's obviously some elitist ass people that are coming out of graduate school that think they should make this amount of money and be like seen this way. Obviously, like let's be realistic, but also you got an advanced degree. You shouldn't be treated like an intern. You shouldn't be treated like a second-class citizen. You shouldn't be treated like you don't know how to do stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't have common sense. I wish I would have been more cognizant of that earlier on in my career, rather than letting it sit on me and eat me up for 9.5 months and then it blew up in my face as a mental breakdown. So that's something that I personally and professionally want to see change, just for the fact that it sucks and it's like the stupidest initiation thing that I know a lot of other professions do it, but it's not proactive, it's not productive in planning. It makes people not want to be in this field when they have to eat shit for like the first year or 3 years or whatever. It's dumb. Sorry. Oh yeah, just applying for jobs that you actually find interesting. You know what I'm saying? I know that's not always the case. You know, you need a job to take care of yourself and bills and all of that. But I passed up on a lot of jobs applying for them just because I felt like I wasn't ready. I felt like I hadn't beat all these like the first 17 levels of Mario to really get to where I could, you know, save Princess Peach. Like I felt like I hadn't jumped over enough barrels to even like apply for it, even though I felt like I could do everything that they were asking for. Those parts in there about being AICP or having this many years or coming from this school or whatever the case may be, when in all honesty, shit, I don't even know if they truly care. You know what I'm saying? Because they don't ever ask you really about where you went to school in your interviews. They just want to be able to give you a hard time about it. So I say all those things that I wish I would have changed, and I want to preface, or it's too late, it's at the end now, but I want to say that going through each one of those things made me a better planner. But I also realized that some of those things, as far as like, okay, just take it on the chin, is a little bit of toxic positivity, in a sense of some shit you gotta step on, some shit you gotta be like, yeah, that's not tight, and that's okay. Something you have to walk away from. And I wish, out of all of that, I wish I would have learned how to walk away and say no and balance urgent versus important earlier in my career, rather than later on. And if that was anything, you know what I'm saying, kind of rolling into the last thing that I was gonna say for this video was words of wisdom. That's the biggest thing. Recognizing your value, valuing your time. Like when you coming out of school, even when you are entry level or maybe even mid level, when you do so much and you're such an amazing team player and such like an amazing ass person, and you're smart and you can multitask, people take advantage of that, and it gets hard to say no, and it gets hard to like make people respect your time and when you're available, and that your free time is not their time to come in and try to overload you. I wish I would have learned that and really sat down and tried to dissect it 3 years ago, before it broke me down to where like it forced me to sit down and like to say like, you have to say no. It's literally gonna break you. It's gonna kill you not to say no if you keep on taking on things that you A, don't have the capacity to do, B, don't have the resources to do, excuse me, and C, are doing above and beyond and still getting reprimanded for helping people. You have to find the fine line between helping and just like taking it all on. You ain't got to do everything. You're not a superhero. You're not a super planner, because that shit is not gonna get you to where you're trying to go. They just gonna take more advantage of you. I'll say that. And the last thing, I had to say a top 5 things words of wisdom, but I'm gonna say 3 because 5 seems like a lot. You know what I'm saying? Words of wisdom for Black planners and or students, or any like planners of color or students, urban planning students of color. Also applicable to students that are in any really development related field, so engineering, architecture, people that are studying real estate, landscape architecture, urban design, across the board. I think it's applicable. So number 1, no particular order as far as like importance. Like I just said, understanding your time and the value of your time. Nobody else is going to respect your time if you don't. I'm still like learning how to do that myself, as far as like time management, and then balance as far as your weekends are your weekends. You should not feel inclined to have to work on the weekends because you have too much going on at work. That's inefficient workflows that you're on your job or your organization's behalf. That's not on you. That's on them. Just people valuing your time, and you valuing your time. You know what I'm saying? It's 24 hours in a day, but it's really easy to get caught into that aspect of work, grind. This is considered the grind, when in reality it's like you're grinding down. You're deteriorating your own mental health just by like overworking for people who go see you finish the work and then dump more work on you. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, urgent versus important. It's a game changer. Shout out to my mentor for that one. The second thing, words of wisdom, put as many skills in your bag as possible. From what my own experience, when you can do things quicker, more efficient, and like just learn it like that and multitask, it really makes people mad that cannot do it the same way, or you can't always explain your process, or you can, but it takes you 5 steps instead of 55 steps. You know what I'm saying? So being able to add things to your bag, GIS, you know what I'm saying, being able to not just make maps, but to be able to really like break down data, and data visualization is like major right now. So if you can do that in Maps, Adobe, InDesign, Photoshop, Illustrator, even Premiere, like you never know when your planning department's gonna want to make a corny video. I don't know, but those things seem like, why would you want to have design? As you can see, like getting people involved and getting people engaged. They want to see colors, they want to see pictures, they want to be interacted with, like truly engaged, not just they don't want to hear you talking with nothing to show. You know what I'm saying? So design aspects, design skills are like major right now. If I could give any advice, is to finesse and use the student part of Adobe as long as you possibly can, because they owe you that. You know what I'm saying? Not just Adobe, SketchUp, AutoCAD on the architecture side, urban design. If you are in a program that you are grateful to have an urban design aspect or pathways, take advantage as much as you can, or freehand it, DIY it, YouTube University, you know what I'm saying? But just constantly add skills to your bag, constantly read up on other aspects of things that deal with planning. That's commercial development, real estate development, economic development, all of that stuff plays a role in planning, and I guarantee you nobody else in your planning department cares enough about it to where they're just gonna pass the buck. So you got a leg up because you actually understand it. So yeah, always add skills to your bag. And the last thing, because I can't think of anything else on the top of my head, is be unapologetic. You know what I'm saying? Be you. I know everybody, it's a plethora of advice going out, or what people think is advice, and it's really just like watered down, quick ways to get to it, and it's not. You know what I'm saying? Urban planning is a long game. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. But there's no reason that you can't make good money. You can't be successful 5 years into your career, 3 years into your career, opposed to 10, 15, 20. Like, yeah, a community can be deteriorated by then. You don't Like, communities don't have time to wait on planners to decide to be involved in the second half of their career, which is 10 years after the fact. Be unapologetic in like what you want to accomplish, the type of planner you want to be, and it's okay for that planner to change from your first 4 years or your first 5 years to your next 5 years, as long as the base, the baseline goal is still the same. For me, for example, the baseline goal is to always create and provide access to planning policies, the complexities of planning as simple as possible to communities that look like me. That goal may change from my first 5 years, which has been primarily focused in spaces, places, space activation, urban design, and zoning. And the last 5 years of my life, my career may change completely to another avenue of planning. It's the beauty of urban planning. It can delve into so many other arenas that you don't have to be boxed into one thing. So when I really say be unapologetic, I really mean be fluid when it comes to how you can impact the community. You can do that through so many different lenses. So do not let an organization, a LinkedIn article, a recruiter, a job, a seasoned planner, whoever tell you gotta fit into a box of urban planning to be successful. They're miserable. They've been put into a box and they can't get out of it, and they've been pigeonholed. You don't have to be that. There's so many avenues for you to go down. It's about finding your lane, killing it, and then being so dope that you can find another lane and kill it just as well, if not better. So always not just be really ready to jump from one thing to another, but really honing in on a craft, honing in on your lane, doing everything that you feel like you've reached your peak, and then transition into another lane that ties into your previous lane. You know what I'm saying? You ran that full marathon for that first lane of planning, which may be transportation, and then in the middle of that you got really interested into land development or development as a whole. Now you're ready to transition. You know what I'm saying? So you're not stuck in a box of just being a transportation planner, you know what I mean? Or being just about transit and transit policy. If nothing else, be flexible, be fluid, and stand 10 toes on that. And when it comes to jobs or organizations or speaking engagements, anything that's gonna take your time, stand 10 on that. You know what I mean? That's a big part of who you are and the planner that you want to be and are gonna be. You know what I'm saying? So if you stayed and watched this whole video, I appreciate you. You're dope. I appreciate all the love and all the support from blckspces to DRBTS, and then of like real life seeing me transition from a planner finding her way to a planner that's still finding her way, but a lot more comfortable and a lot more sound in who she wants to be and how she wants to exist in this world. I definitely appreciate y'all, and to all the planners that I've met virtually, I cannot say thank you enough for so many we've become best friends just from online and sharing some of the same values and visions of how to really shake things up in urban planning. So to y'all, I'm undoubtedly in debt. It's too many of y'all to name, but just know, if you know, you know. And it's a ton of love, and I cannot wait to link with some of y'all in person. COVID pending, what have you. But I appreciate y'all. I appreciate the support of DRBTS. I appreciate y'all really being able to see me living my passion, but also this journey of entrepreneurship from an urban planning perspective. Maybe in the next video we'll get into that and delve into what that's been like and how that's been balancing that in my 9 to 5. But until then, I appreciate y'all. I'll see y'all next time.